Hi again, everyone. This is Tim and Anthony on RadioMVP.com as we get ready for our 31st episode of Radio MVP Sports Podcast. And of course, you can find us on the internet at RadioMVP.com. You can find us on Facebook at Facebook/RadioMVP. And you can find myself on the social networks. Just take a look and find us. I'm at Tim Continenza on everything. He's ACAP17 on Instagram.
Yep.
And basically that's how you do contact us. And obviously, if you get this download through iTunes, we highly ask you to do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. The views we get, the faster we can grow Radio MVP. And you know what, Anthony, I didn't mention this earlier before we started, but might as well talk about it right now. We're doing well. We've reached over 1,000 plays on SoundCloud since we began last spring. And we're just about 50 podcasts in on all variations of Radio MVP. You and I have done 31 episodes of the sports podcast. I've done about 13 high school football specials on the Scoreboard Show. And I also believe I did like 4 or 5 one-on-one interviews. Plus, we did a few just football-only ones with Matt Emch. So Matt will be joining us again here shortly. He's last I talked to him, he was down in Florida, so I didn't even bother. Yeah, man, he got away for the week. Yeah, he picked a good time to get out of here.
Yes,
for a while,
he did. Yeah, he did. Right as the snow and ice came a couple days ago, he decided, you know what? Well, that's it for me.
I think he's been down there for about the last week to 10 days. So, yeah, he's doing well.
That must be nice.
Yeah, a little jealous here, aren't we?
Yeah, I am too. I'm
not going to lie. It's a good time to get away.
Yeah,
but as we're going to get into it,
my aunt sent me a picture at the pool a couple days ago. She said it's a little chilly, 78 degrees right now. I said, man, that's chilly.
Oh, that's
chilly.
It is going to be 50 tomorrow, supposedly. I've been hearing that all day today.
Tomorrow. It is going to be nice tomorrow. Boy, the little things we enjoy here, right?
We're not going to open the pool or nothing, but we may enjoy.
They wear their shorts tomorw.
We're not having the winter coat on all day.
Yeah.
And the stocking cap, So, anyways, as I mentioned earlier, Radio MVP, you can find us on the internet at RadioMVP.com. All our past episodes are available there and on SoundCloud and through all your apps that you may download us in. But what I really wanted to talk about on our podcast here is about just RadioMVP.com, because it is a great site that we put together here with some help from others. And you can listen to it right there or you can download it right from the website. So there's a lot of opportunities to get hold of us. Matter of fact, you can even rate and review us right there on the website, meaning you can leave a review of all our podcasts right there on Radio MVP. So I don't necessarily promote it as much as I should. And I wanted to get that out there for those who are listening. And do us a favor. If you have a family member, a friend, someone who loves sports that doesn't know about Radio MVP, get them a download, give them an opportunity to hear us. And we'd love to hear from you. You can, like I said, you can find me 2 ways on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter at the Real Radio MVP at the Real Radio MVP, and myself as at Tim Continenza, CONTINENZA. All right, enough of the promotion stuff, Anthony. I just, I love to try to, help us out a little bit, but seems like I go on and on and on that. And anyways, you can find us everywhere. Please do. As we get into it, we'll talk about the Indians, the Browns, the Cavs, a little everything going on. But I want to start with the football action going on, and I want to talk about the Senior Bowl. It's probably the most overlooked All-Star game of the year, but maybe the most important All-Star game because you really get a chance. And this year, and I think, as you and I both root for teams that are going to be picking the top 5, looking for quarterbacks. This year, actually, they have 4 quarterbacks that are going to be playing in that game that, you're going to take a look in a pro offense and style. And matter of fact, is Denver one of the coaching staffs there?
Yes.
I believe they are.
We are coaching the North squad, and I think Houston has the other squad. We have the quarterback-heavy roster. We got all the top prospects quarterback-wise on our side.
You got the one with Allen and Baker Mayfield.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it should be. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mayfield does. I got different opinions on him.
He's a tantalizing option.
I am concerned. Yeah, I'm not sure he's
tantalizing.
I'm not sure he's a first round draft pick, and that's just from my own. I think he's a leader. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
My question is he Johnny Manziel 2.0 with the head that's going to get him in trouble? And that's my biggest concern about him. Allen, obviously, he played at Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that was down in south of Florida. But more than anything about him is what's interesting to me is, of course, Wyoming is coached by the former coach from North Dakota, which, of course, had Wentz. And it's the exact same offense. And you're looking at a big guy. And a guy who could make the throws and possibly maybe have the best upside of all the group. Obviously Darnold is a huge name and also Josh Rosen. So there's this is a quarterback rich draft coming up, and Saturday afternoon for that game down in Mobile, Alabama. I think on the marquee of the quarterback position, we're going to see a lot. Barkley's playing, and a few other the running backs are playing. Offensive linemen are in the game. They really did a great job recruiting some of these players to come and be evaluated early and be seen at the Senior Bowl this year. In the past, it seemed like it was kind of a hit and miss. You never knew what type of a group they were going to get. But this year, Phil Savage has just done a terrific job, in my opinion, trying to get some marquee players to show up and be part of this, and get a jump on the draft and get a jump on being evaluated and talk to the different coaching staffs that are all down there this week. Not just the 2 that are coaching on the sidelines on Saturday, but and GMs, and it's kind of like the combine light with a football game.
I was watching Teen World practice a couple days ago, and they had Phil Savage on. I thought he's done a terrific job this year. And he made note, this is the first year since 2007 that the current Heisman Trophy winner is playing in the game. And the last one was Troy Smith. I give the kudos to Baker Mayfield. He didn't have to play in this. He could have said, you know what, I already won the Heisman. I'm good. I know where I'm going to be. But give credit to Baker Mayfield going out, wanting to improve, wanting to meet with all the different teams. He's a tantalizing option. He is a terrific leader, like you said. Is he a little small? For quarterback-wise in the NFL, yes. But Russell Wilson and Drew Brees are special, and they're short of stature. Josh Allen struggled his first practice. Now it's his first practice, throwing a bunch of whole new plays, a lot of high throws. And that could just be the energy. You're out there playing against the best of the best. And Savage also made note of in the mornings they have team meetings, the afternoons practice, and then after dinner and team meals, it's like open interviews where all 32 teams can talk to every player. And I really thought that it's a week-long job fair, basically. And
it is.
No better way to start the draft process and the combine process with open interviews. And that's where you really learn a lot about the guys and all that as a Broncos fan. And, 5, I think it's a little too high to draft Baker Mayfield, but boy, he's tantalizing. I just think his attitude and his competitive fire would really spark a very stagnant offense, especially in that division. But then again, you got to worry about the off-field stuff. And is it as serious as Manziel? No. but it's still a little risky. And I think it could push some teams away. It's no question about it. But there are some really good players. You mentioned Barkley is going to be there, and the kid from Georgia, their offensive tackle. Boy, he looked good this week.
Yeah,
he's looked good.
I tell you what, like you said, it is. Like I said, they're getting a jump on everybody else in the draft board.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, all week in practice, they're going to be evaluated, obviously, in the game, making the plays and running certain, offense that are pro style and what's going on. So, it's a great opportunity for the kids, for the players, I should say. And I really think it's more important as a football fan. And maybe I'm biased here. And the reason is, of course, I have a team that is perennially, drafting their Super Bowl every year, on the draft board. So, maybe that has a reason for me to be more excited about it. But, and when I look at it, if someone told me, all right, here's the scenario. You have to pick 1 or 2 games to watch this week, and you have to watch it. You go to a bowl game or you go watch the Senior Bowl. I'm taking the Senior Bowl.
I am too.
Every time.
I am
and
too.
It's not just because I think it's more competitive. I just think I can learn more about, young players and have an idea about some of these guys. Some of them I've never seen play, just on highlights or maybe a half or part of a game or just one game. So it's a chance just to, get an idea about what they can do. And I really, to me, the Senior Bowl, is a big part of the evaluation process today that it wasn't. And, with underclassmen, coming into the NFL, they don't always get a chance to play in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, one of the drawbacks, I think, for teams that look at some of they're going to be able to evaluate them with or without that game. But, as a football fan, I love seeing these. When I was young, these all-star games were all, there was 3 or 4 of them, and they would go all the month of, February. You would see them, right after the Super Bowl, which would have been like last week or 2. And then all of a sudden you would see nothing but these games on every weekend. And, if it was the Japan Bowl, if it was the East-West game, and if it was the Senior Bowl, they had like 3 or 4 of these over the years. And obviously they've all, gone away. Only the Shrine game, the East-West Shrine game, which has now moved to the end of the season, used to be like, I think, Christmas weekend.
Yep.
For many, many years. And now the Senior Bowl, those are the only 2 that really have survived that and players today don't have that connection to it. Many years ago, this was their first payday for a lot of these guys to play in this game, and they would play in 2 or 3 of them just because they pick up a few extra chips along the way, and they would also get evaluated and chance to add to their hardware, with MVPs and the most outstanding offensive lineman, defensive lineman type awards. Not that it matters, but it was always something like that, that seemed to be important at the time. Maybe it was just because I was young and influenced by just playing the game and watching it back there. But, not all of the games were competitive there. I remember games being 55-8 and, and stuff like that, but they have a value. And honestly, I'm to the Senior Bowl for that reason, because we get to see players, put in a pro offense and a pro style and see how they react. And yeah, you celebrate what players did, but honest to God, I just don't care no more. It just does not move me. I understand why they play the game. Years ago, it used to be part of a way for the union to make money. Nowadays, I don't believe the proceeds of the all-pro game goes to the union. So I just don't see the value. And many times it went to kind of a pension fund for the players. I'm not sure that's the case anymore in the NFL.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, where multiple kids would play in multiple games. You see a lot of good stories too. I know this year they have a very deep cornerback class. and 3 kids from Division 1AA through Division 3 cornerbacks alone are playing in this game. And I like watching Senior Bowl. The lone fact, you could see guys you haven't really maybe heard of all year or haven't really watched all year. And there's a lot of 1AA guys that have come out in the past and shined in this game and have looked really good and have got a, like you say, jump start on the whole draft process and earning a roster spot. Another kid that really stood out to me this week I was watching, you mentioned the kids played in multiple games. Justin Watson played in the East-West Shrine game last weekend, and he got an invite late last weekend to come play this week in the Senior Bowl. And he's really impressed a couple people. So it's a lot of fun to see guys that maybe you have never heard of become household names all of a sudden.
You know, like I said, it's a great opportunity to get a fans certain players and maybe cement some of the thought processes that you had about a certain player. And obviously, you know, the draft is where you find these kids. And, you know, you may find a late guy, a guy who's in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round in the Senior Bowl because of how they played and how they impressed somebody. And you're looking for a certain position, if it's a linebacker, or if it's an offensive tackle, or if it's whatever the case may be. And there's many times where a game like this increases their value. So it has an all around need, and it meets it. You know, as we look at the NFL, of course, we're headed towards the Super Bowl not this weekend, but the following weekend. And I'm looking forward to the game. There's 2 thought processes you hear a lot. Oh, I don't want to see the Patriots win again, or I'm tired of the Patriots, and Tom Brady is the greatest player of all time. Yeah, or you hear the Eagles really kind of being disrespected.
Yes,
because obviously Wentz is down, and even though they won 2 home games in the playoffs and won them significant, really
looked good Sunday.
Yeah, really looked good in both games, actually, in the way they played. And I would just say, in the end, I think we're going to see a better game than most people think. And
I think we're going to see a phenomenal game.
I think it's about a 5.5, 6 point spread. If you're a betting person, new the favorite, I would take that. If I was, if I'm going to put some money down, if I could get 6 points in Philadelphia,
I would take that.
I think I'd take it.
Yeah, it's going to be
traditionally
the
Super Bowl's close. Traditionally, the Super Bowl's been close the last 10, 15 years. I mean, it has not been the blowouts that it used to be. Many years ago, we've seen the blowouts where,
Trust
San Francisco would blow out everybody. Yeah, exactly.
Painfully.
We all have. And, it's an interesting discussion. Here's an interesting discussion. I had this on Facebook with a friend of mine. He likes to show this sporting picks at times, but obviously debate of the greatest quarterback of all time, and vote is Tom Brady, which I am not here to say he's incorrect. I'm just saying I think a lot of it has to do with recency bias because he's playing today, and I take nothing away from the Patriots for what they have achieved and how many Super Bowls they've been in. This was the 8th Super Bowl. That's
1, 2, and 1, 3 every 4. I think 7th. 7th, I believe I heard. No, well, it's
this will be the 8th, right?
The 8th. No, the 9th.
No, this is the 7th, I think, for them. Maybe it's the 8th. I don't know. I would have to think about it.
3 and 1 beat 4.
Brady has won 5 Super Bowls, correct?
Yeah, so this will be their 8th appearance.
5 and 2.
Brady.
Yeah,
this will be their 8th with Brady, 9th overall as a franchise.
Correct. That's what it is. Or actually 10th as a franchise.
10th? Yes. Yeah, because they got blown out by the Bears.
You're forgetting about the Bears. Exactly, yes. But, hey, credit was credit due. I mean, you're a dynasty for a reason because you're there. My question to you is it that New England has been that solid over the last, 15, 20 years? Or is it the AFC just unable to compete? That are, I mean, you get down to it, there's only been two teams that, been there besides the Patriots. What's that? The Steelers and the Broncos.
Yeah, it's
and of course the Steelers have won what, 2 of the 3 that they've been in during that time period, and the Broncos won 1 of 3.
The Broncos have won 1 of 2.
1 of 2, yeah.
Yeah, we lost in the 05-06 AFC title game to Pittsburgh. Listen, New England's really good. And it's incredible when you sit back and look at the run. Are they that good? Some years, yes. There was one year, they went 18-1, 17-1, where they were just leaps and bounds better. And I think I don't want to be the old cliche of it's matchups, but you really come down to it. In any playoff sense, it's matchups. You can look across all the sports.
All sporting events are matchups. All sporting events are matchups.
And I think the Patriots just match up better than everybody against everybody in the AFC now. They don't have a really good division. That division's terrible. There's only been one team from the AFC South, the Colts. Now they stink. So Jacksonville's become. There's never been like 2 teams who are from the same division that can challenge them. Pittsburgh is an awful match.
That's my point. You made my point. What I was thinking is they have the Patriots have dominated so much over the last 15 years that no one's actually really challenged them during that time period. They've had a few bleeps of someone maybe on the verge of looking like they could challenge them in the division.
3 years.
But at least in the Central, I'm going to say, at least in the Central, you had, or the North, I should say, you had Pittsburgh and Baltimore really battling it out most years, and Cincinnati, making a couple runs. I mean, all 3 of those teams have win the division and make the playoffs. It's just, obviously Pittsburgh has been the most dominant by getting to the Super Bowl 3 times in that time period. But Baltimore got there and won their one Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers a few years back.
They should have never won the divisional matchup. I'm still salty about that.
Hey, can't change history.
70-yard touchdown pass in the last second.
And like you mentioned, obviously there's no one in the West in the AFC has really competed during this time period. And you look at the only other team that has had success in the playoffs.
Yeah, we've had
the Broncos, the Steelers, and the Pats. They're making it to the Super Bowl.
The Ravens got them one year in Foxborough. That was the Ravens Super Bowl year. 2012-13. We've got them 3 times. We beat them in the divisional round in 2005 and 6, and we got them in the 2 AFC Championship games where we made the Super Bowl. It's just been, if you better get them in your place in the playoffs, or you're not going to win. There's something about the Foxborough mystique in the playoffs that, you just don't win.
I'll say this.
You can see teams.
They put themselves. The Patriots over the years have put themselves in best position to win ball games, and they have made plays late in games to win it. Obviously, Seattle should have won, or could have won, I should say, back-to-back championships, but they threw the interception at the goal line, and and they came away with the victory. Obviously, the Patriots, had the 2 game-winning field goals, by that, obviously you can't change history. It is what it was, and and of course, I don't want to take anything away from what they have done and what they have achieved, but I don't consider. I look at Tom Brady. I see a person who's dominated his generation, and I think that's absolutely without question. he is the best quarterback of his generation. And I don't think there's any question about it. You can point to the success of Manning and say Manning had the opportunity to put up great numbers and great Super Bowl wins. But, obviously, when you look at Peyton Manning overall record in the Super Bowls, what was it, 2-3?
Yeah, he won one with us. He lost one with us, so he's 1-1, and he was 1-1 with the Colts.
2-2 overall, right?
Yeah. He lost to the Seahawks and the Saints, and beat the Bears and the Panthers.
Yeah,
if my memory serves me correct.
It sounds basically correct to me because I don't pay attention anymore. But
I know he blew a couple 17-point leads against Brady, though. He had a couple years where he had big leads on Brady, and it just.
Well, yeah, exactly. And then that obviously he didn't blow it. The team blew it because that's the defense. He don't play defense, But
his interception set him up.
My point. Yeah, my point is, in my opinion, he is probably the greatest quarterback of his generation. You can make the case for Manning, and I don't have a problem with that. And other generations. And I think obviously Joe Montana was the greatest of his generation. I think right in that same category is Steve Young. It gets overlooked. And then you have, of course, you go back into the 70s, you have the Bradshaws and the Stablers and, you can go all the way back to Namath, in the late 60s and stuff like that. So, there were obviously different quarterbacks at different times who made their runs. And the ones that obviously stand out are Bradshaw being 4-0, Montana being 4-0, and then Brady winning 5 out of 7 chances and has a chance down to get his 6th or not. We'll have to wait and see. And, Eli Manning, if someone was trying to take it away from Eli Manning and what he achieved with his 2 Super Bowl wins, saying if it wasn't for 2 miraculous catches and stuff like that, they would have, we're looking at every championship. Well, ifs and buts, it's just not the way games are played. You can talk about, you can talk about any play in any game, saying if the ball was left or right or high or low, or if it was, if it had another foot higher, or if it was another foot longer, or if that kick went left or right, or went straight, that's what sports is about. You can bitch and cry all you want, but the play was ended what it was. If he's called out, if he's called safe, if he's it's called a touchdown, in, out, whatever the case may be, that's what it was about it. And that's being a fan, and I get it. But it doesn't change the fact of what it was.
Well, that brings up a good point.
My whole point is Brady is 5-2. He has the most wins as a quarterback in the NFL and Super Bowls, and he has a chance to get his 6th, which would actually outdistance everybody. Yep. And legitimately, I would tip my hat and call him the best ever. But am I ever still Montana and what he achieved? And the game against the Bengals and that drive to win that Super Bowl, to me, standing drive I've ever witnessed in a Super Bowl to win a game.
Well, I tell you what, there was another drive that went 98.5 yards into a bunch of fans wearing dog masks and throwing bones in the field. But I won't bring it up. I will not bring it up anymore. No,
that's not the Super Bowl. That's not. I'm talking about Super Bowls. I'm talking about championship games. That's the conference championship. That's insignificant.
That drive Brady had against the Rams to lead them down for the game-winning field goal was impressive. But I agree with you. That drive. No, I wasn't.
I know.
But watching highlights of it, it was pretty dang impressive what he did. What you're talking about, though, you could sit back and go, well, if this play goes this way, well, if that play goes that way, or well, if Seattle runs the ball here, well, we had a similar play 20 years ago that if John Elway's helicopter dive is spun an inch this way, he's short of the first down, and we don't score, it's I just think, to answer your question, is Tom Brady the greatest of all time? I mean, that's so tough because there have been really terrific quarterbacks that played in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. And I mean, New England really hasn't played a rigorous AFC playoff schedule. I mean, they played good
Well, more
teams,
than that,
great teams.
let me ask you this. Here's the way I look at it, and this is more about the NFL. Other than when Seattle rose up a few years back, who proved at that time period that they really were the best team in football. There hasn't been a real challenge in the NFL to the New England Patriots.
Nope.
There have been a couple teams that have had big runs and have made it to the Super Bowl or won it, and they did not. But over the time period that we're talking about,
it's
the 15 years, there really has, other than a couple rises of certain teams, like Denver had their rise. When Manning joined the Broncos, they became a Super Bowl contender.
Mm-hmm.
They're 2 out of 3 years. In the West, or in the NFC, I should say, it was Seattle. It was the only team I think they faced in the last that you can say going into each game, you thought Seattle was the better team.
Yeah,
I thought Seattle was the best team on the field both games, but they ended up making crucial mistakes. And there's the difference: is New England has not made crucial mistakes that have hurt them.
No, they haven't.
Maybe the only time they ever did, and it was against the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
And there was never earth-shattering difference, but it kept the Giants in the ball game and gave the Giants opportunities to win. And I don't want to take anything away from what the Giants achieved both those seasons. I'm just saying that may have been the hardest 2 games that they had.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. The Giants only had that one little, 3 to 5 year run where they were contenders in the NFL, and they were inconsistent during that whole period. And same thing. I mean, you look at Seattle. Seattle had about a 3-year run where they were maybe the best team in the NFL, and haven't been able really to achieve since that interception at the level that they were those 2 years. But here's New England again, and making it work and finding a way. And this year they dominated the East. Then they found a way to win big games against the Steelers. They found a big way to win games in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They came back from behind against Jacksonville. I hate, I'm going to tip my hat to what they have achieved. And, I do believe, and I've said it all year long, that the Eagles are the best team in football this year. And we'll find out if I'm right or wrong in a week. But Nick Foles is gonna be difficult. However, I don't think this New England's defense is great.
No.
I think what they do better than any other team this year, though, is make adjustments. They have made more second half adjustments and adjustments on the fly to keep their teams in the ball game, for their offense can make the plays that they have than any other defense this year. A bend don't break defense, meaning you can get it, you can hit them, you can get points against them. But once the second half comes down, they kind of find a way to shut you down or take a leg away from you. Offense and opportunity. Jacksonville's a perfect example of that. Jacksonville scored his first 2 touchdowns of the ball game, got up 14-7 and was looking strong in the second half, but that was it. They couldn't get into the end zone again, and it ended up losing. And you just can't do that in the NFL. You have to do, if your foot's on someone's throat, you got to suffocate them.
Yeah,
you got to do it in the NFL. And most teams right now have not been able to throw that knockout punch against New England. I still think this Eagle team can do it. I think they can.
This is I don't want to call them the worst because they're a Super Bowl defense. They made it to the Super Bowl. But this is probably the one of their lower ranked defenses. Not one of their better Super Bowl team defense they've had. I don't know how to say that correctly. Of all the Super Bowl teams they've had, this is probably the worst defense they've had going into the game. But like you said, though, they will let you move off between the 20s. But once you get in the red zones, they suffocate you, and they hold you to field goals, and they go to halftime, and like you said, they make plays in the first half that give them a chance to win. Go to halftime, make defensive adjustments, and you're just not scoring on them. And you better execute a flawless game plan in the second half to have a chance to win. You're not going to beat them. I will say this though: you have been on the Eagle bandwagon since late September, and I am slowly getting on it. If there's a team,
there's only one more week to jump on it.
If there is a team that can beat New England, every team in the NFL is beatable. But you look at the recipe to beat New England, and you got to have a really good defense, and the Eagles do, and they're fast. Knock Brady off his spot, control the ball. They can do that with Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount. And have your quarterback make some throws that win you the game. You don't need to have a quarterback to go out and throw for 300 yards, but if Foles can go out and make a couple plays to win the game, I think they got a good chance. And their receiving core is really good. And the Patriots secondary can be thrown on. We've seen it this year. For God's sake, Brock Osweiler threw on them.
Yeah, I think Alshon Jeffries huge key in this ball game. And yeah, maybe the best signing of this year.
I agree.
He's their number one receiver. Obviously, the old talk about the Patriots is Belichick will take your best. And if they take him away, you still have Zach Ertz, maybe as a legitimate, threat. And they have a running attack that's not bad. You got Ajayi. You have the former Patriot and Blount.
And Blount.
They have ammunition there. I mean, they got a lot they can do. And this defense that they're going to be facing, meaning the Eagles defense, is as a team that I honestly do believe is underrated. Quarterbacks, Ramsey and those, they can play. And, obviously they have the leadership in Long, the former Patriot from last year, who's over now in Philadelphia. I think they have a lot of pieces there.
Yes, they do.
I think we're going to see a very good game. I'm not expecting a really high scoring game. I think we're going to see a game similar to the New England Patriots and the Jacksonville game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be low 20s.
24-20, 24-21.
Yeah. Yeah, and that tells you they'll be 35-34 because I'm always wrong.
Hey, in the playoffs, you've been right, though. You've been spot on about the Eagles.
Yeah, hey, look. Obviously, there's only X amount of teams that make the playoffs, and it's easier to, pick a favorite, the number one overall seed in football to make the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I didn't go out on a limb.
It wasn't too great. So
that's true. That's true. And they were the number one seed. I don't know if that's good for the Eagle fans out there or not. I don't know.
You are picking the Eagles. So if I were an Eagle fan, I'd be, oh no.
However, I was rooting for chaos. I wanted the Bulls. I got one of them in the Super Bowl.
You would have had a 14-10 game.
I just want to, speaking of football, I don't know if you heard this today or not.
Yes, I did.
But Vince McMahon is bringing back the XFL. And that was from 2001. He Hate Me will make a return to the NFL, to the XFL. You know what? I respect his ability to try to do this again. However, on the outline that he gave today,
boy,
it doesn't have a free.
No, it does not.
Players on a team is just impossible. Too many injuries. Too many things can happen. I know it's only a 10-team league.
No,
40 players on a team. You can't make it as a professional league. Problem. No game is going to be under 2 hours. I don't care. In the end,
it's running clock.
You're playing. Yeah, that's the only way you can do it is with a running clock.
Mm-hmm.
need for that. All right, they're going to get rid of all the flash that they had last time and try to be more about football, which is great.
You're gonna get,
I just,
but
honest to God, and saying that you're going to handcuff the players and not make them have ability to talk about whatever's on their mind and be social activists and that. Please, I honestly,
they have the right to do that.
Yeah, well, I don't even, they do. But my point is, I don't think you're going to find players who, I mean, you'll find the
Johnny Manziel wants to play.
Yeah, right. The marginal player, yes, who's trying to make his comeback. Just like you found a Maddox years ago who ended up playing for the Steelers at quarterback.
Did you hear the rules though he said?
Bronco. So you're going to find a couple players. It's just I think there's an opportunity. Let me finish this statement here. I think there's an opportunity to actually get a league in football and challenge the NFL, but I think you have to do it the proper way. I think you need a minimum of 12 teams to start, not 10. And I honestly think you need at least 50 players, if not 55 players on a roster. And yes, that's going to take money. And you're going to have to do what the USFL did years ago, invade the NFL and get some players out of there and compete. Now, are you going to compete on a Sunday afternoon? Or are you going to watch a minor league league versus the NFL? Probably not. But you may, and this is where you may get lucky, is if you did do it in a fall league, and I'm not sure if they're going to do fall or spring or summer league, for this XFL restart. But if you did during the fall, I would try to compete against the Thursday night games, and I would try to compete, and put on on Thursdays and Saturdays. Have all my games on Thursdays and Saturdays and not even try to compete on Sundays and go for it. I mean, that's to me, if you had two games on a Thursday night, one at 6 and one at 9 or whatever, and one kind of East Coast early and West Coast early and see what you can do. I mean, that's how that'd be my recommendation to anybody who wanted to start a league. I just don't think it's going to work. I think we're going to see XFL failure 2.0 come 2020. I do. I'm not rooting for it. I just, a matter of fact, I think the idea of another league could be fun and exciting. I mean, when the USFL was around, and I loved it. I used to watch it all the time, and actually cared. And I had teachers in schools back in the day who loved, football, and we would talk football in that league just because it was football. So I think there is an opportunity. I just honestly think it's such a small percent chance. And if it's not done properly, it's not going to work. And, my hat's off for him to give it a try again. I think he's just, I think he's going to get body slammed again. I just honestly don't think it's going to happen. I think it's failure 2.0 for the XFL, and they haven't even played it down, and it's 2 years from now that they're going to do it. Now a 40-man roster and a 10-team league can work. And that's the biggest thing they are going to have to overcome. And you're not going to get marginal players who are going to become superstars. They just don't happen. You're going to have to invade the NFL and get some aging veterans to come over. You're going to have to steal some people from the draft, and you're going to have to actually market players. The marketability, I think, probably Vince McMahon and his it could get it done. The question mark, as I have, is you're going to find enough players. With 32 teams in the NFL now, it's going to be difficult to find players without invading the NFL to find those players.
Well, rumor has it the NFL wants to send the Cleveland Browns to the XFL as the first team in the league.
Well, you know what? I get the joke, but you know what? Maybe the XFL will become the soccer world where teams get sent down to, they get deregulated down. You always hear about that, from the Premier League, we gotta win this week, and we make sure we don't lose our our premier status
Yeah,
and be regulated to the next league down. So wait and
it's
see. I don't think
it's
that'll
a
ever
good
happen in sports,
idea.
and it works well for sports like that who have a worldwide appeal. Not that I know much about the world of soccer. I don't, and I don't pretend to. And I'm not going to sit here and say the World Cup's coming and you need to watch it, because you don't. I have nothing against it, though. If you enjoy it and that's something you love, then go for it. I've gone to soccer games. I've enjoyed myself, but I don't necessarily think it's ever going to grow larger than what it is here in America, just because it lacks action.
Yep.
It lacks action. Baseball, they say, lacks action. Baseball has 1,000 times more action.
Yes. Yes.
And I think baseball, matter of fact, is heading in the right direction. And I'm really curious to see if they're going to implement a pitch clock this year. There's more and more talk that may happen.
I think they will.
And I think it would be a wonderful thing.
Are they testing it out in spring training? Is it a spring training rule? They are testing it out?
I think there's actually talk about it being part of the season. I
read that. I didn't know if they were going to make a requirement for spring training, see how it goes to the test run.
They may try it in the spring and then reevaluate it. I really don't know. It's a possibility. Look, the game does need sped up.
Yes, it does.
It does. I'm a poker fan, and I don't watch that much poker anymore on television or online because of what they call tanking in poker, where a guy has a hand that pretty much you can make a decision on in less than 10 seconds of what you're going to do. And they sit there for a minute or two. They may, before they fold. And in the same thing here in baseball. I mean, we've seen pitchers hold the ball for 45 seconds before the next pitch.
Yep.
I understand variation of pitching, and I understand the variation time to hold runners and stuff like that. However, the game of baseball traditionally was over in about 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes. And it needs to get closer to that number, under 3 hours again. And the best way and now look, there's more strategy in the game today than ever, and more pitching changes than ever. That slows the game down. Or, lefty and righty situations for batters. I mean, I have no problem with the strategy of the game. But, the biggest problem is there's action. There's balls in play. I think the biggest problem with baseball is that today the action is the strikeout, because it's either a strikeout or a home run, because strikeouts are now acceptable. You can strike out 150, 160 times like a judge, as long as you hit 40 home runs. And obviously it makes a lot of sense because of the numbers he puts up, and it brings fans to the ballpark to watch a guy like that play. However, waiting 35 seconds between each pitch for that to happen, that makes it difficult. And I think more than anything for baseball, if they can speed up the game, it'd be good for the game. And I don't think it'll take away that much of the strategy, honestly. I just would like to see, where more pitchers had kind of a Trevor Bauer, ball's back in my hand. I'm on the rubber. I'm looking in. I'm ready to make my next pitch.
Yep. Let's go.
And, if you're making pitches every 15 seconds, every 15, 18 seconds, I think the game just goes tremendously much faster. I have no problem later in the game because of especially late in the season where you need a little bit more strategy to take more time and runners are on base. New pitcher comes in. I get that. However, in the same vein, in the third inning with nobody on, the guy's taking 35 seconds between pitches. That's a killer for everybody.
Yeah, it's I do think baseball needs to speed up a little bit. A couple years ago, we got under the 3 hour mark. Last year, we went back up again to, I think, 3 hours, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, I read. Baseball has been the only game without a clock, but we do need to speed it up. We do need to get more consistent action and not so long of breaks that causes.
Well, here's you're a golfer. You enjoy golf, and that doesn't have a clock. And you see there, they actually have, a time limit at times.
Yes, they do.
On the golfer to approach a ball and to make a play. Now they can back off and take their time and reevaluate things, which is fine. A baseball player can get out of the box, reevaluate, and get back in, but don't take 35 seconds to do it.
Nope.
I cover high school basketball, and high school basketball does not have a shot clock.
Nope.
And I've been a proponent of a shot clock in high school sports, basketball for the last 20 years. And the reason is I think teams go back into the 3-2, zone defense a little too much. And nothing wrong with it, but either A, the offense will hold the ball waiting for you to come out, or B, they just, they're happy to play a 6 quarter, and that's just not enough action or fun. But if you had even a 35-40 second shot clock, then it forces teams to make more decisions defensively and offensively, and I think that's a good thing for all sports, when you have to make decisions a little bit faster and try to adapt. Obviously, the shot clock at 24 seconds in the NBA has been around forever. It goes back into the 50s, I think. And so shot clocks have been around, and I think more and more sports have it. Hell, the NFL has the snap, the
play clock.
The play clock that's been around forever, and they've adjusted that, at different times from 30 seconds to 40 seconds to 25 seconds. So they've always done it in the college football seconds, and high school is 25 seconds, I believe. It might be 30, but it's in that range. I would like to see high school basketball institute a shot clock. And I think if you put it around 30 to 40 seconds, it would be perfect. And, it's just, I think there's time for growth in all sports, and there's nothing wrong with change. If change is to make the sport more competitive or more desirable to watch. And, all sports have it. I don't care. That's just like tennis. Tennis, used to be a great sport to watch. Now, I can't tell you the last American star there was a male tennis player. I mean, Andre Agassi. I mean, I have to go back that far.
I have no idea.
That's my point. These are the things, all those sports all don't have clocks. Baseball's not the only one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of how you approach it and what you want to do and how you want to move a sport forward. And I think baseball needs to find a way to speed up the game, keep players in the box, and have more action and hopefully more contact, in play contact. And I think that more than anything will speed up the game. Obviously more contact is the key to baseball, in my opinion. Obviously a pitch clock will help. However, more contact would be even more. You go back into the 40s and 50s and the 60s, the games were quick. Why? Because players didn't strike out. I mean, strikeouts had a bad taste in your mouth if you struck out. You didn't want to be a guy who struck out 100 times. Nowadays, you're talking about players who can strike close up to 200 times a season, and it's no big deal. And that's the analytics, and it shows everything else, how the game has changed. And, even yesterday hearing Jim Thome talk about it, his on-base percentage is what he cared about most. And, he goes, I struck out a lot. Obviously he did, because he was a power hitter. He was a traditional power hitter, but he also walked a lot.
Yep.
And he walked 100 times. Matter of fact, I think Babe Ruth, him and I think was it one other player I believe, I'm not sure, or one of the few who had
this morning, and I forget.
I'm going to say over a 5 years run where they had more than 100 walks and had an on-base percentage at such a level. I mean, it just tells you the importance of it, So we'll just have to wait and see how it develops for baseball. But, obviously I think in the end, innovation is a good thing, and trying new things is not evil. I used to be a real traditionalist as years gone by.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten over that, and I'm now more than, want to see new things. And if the XFL, going back to that, brings in new and innovative things to the game of football, that's a good thing. I don't think in the end that the way that he wants to design it will appeal to the masses. I think he may find a small segment of society of football fans who'll watch it, but I don't think he'll get the eyeballs that he needs to be successful. The days of the NFL and the AFL find that parity between the leagues, or go back to the NBA where the NBA and the ABA was around. I don't think you're ever going to find that parity again without actually going after players from that other league and escalating salaries and going for it. And you may have to. That might be the only way to compete. I don't care what league you're looking at. And I don't think anyone's going to make a baseball league anytime soon. I don't think anyone's going to make a basketball league anytime soon. And it always leads back to football, because football's once a week and you can plan. And if you put your plan into action properly, you may, find that golden goose. We'll see if Vince McMahon second time around can learn from his mistakes and do it right. I don't have a lot of faith in it.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be a big hit. I think it's going to be a flop, especially with, the 40-man team. You're going to need a lot more than that to play a football game. You need 22 people on offense and defense, and you need subs. So, and then what about
that's
injuries
exactly it.
That?
Well, if you had one freeze position, that's 44 players.
Yeah, and then you're talking about not allowing anybody with a criminal background at all. And I agree with that to an extent. What are you going to do? A guy who 15 years ago got a DUI and has been clean since, and no, you can't play? I agree you want to get a clean league, but Johnny Manziel wants to play, and by rule he can't play because he has a record. It's just
yeah, it's nuts. And look, I think that will evolve over time. I think that was just a publicity stunt trying to appeal to those who say they haven't watched an NFL game this year because of the issues with the flag and kneeling and all that. I'm not going to get into that political thing right here. I can do that on my other podcast and do that. Speaking of which, there'll be podcasts coming your way. Matter of fact, I have a few people lined up already, and it should be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to getting those back up and running. And we're going to have a lot here as we approach our 1-year anniversary this spring. It's only January. We're about 8 months into this, Anthony, and over 1,000 plays. And we continue to grow. Once again, I'm going to appeal to you. If you listen to this podcast, please go to iTunes, rate and review us, give us a subscribe. And the more ratings and reviews we get, it will help us outgrow Radio MVP. And tell your family and friends and get them to download it. Go to our website, learn more about us at radiomvp.com. Anthony, last thoughts for the night?
No, not really. Just excited for the Senior Bowl for the first time in a long time. Boy, it stinks having a top 5 draft pick. I'll take some advice from you on how to accept it as the years go on, I guess.
Well, we'll see how the Broncos handle it. And we'll see. I'm really looking forward to what, we'll get into the draft. We'll talk about the different positions. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a draft expert. I'm going to tell everybody what to do right now. If you're into the draft, no, I'm serious. If you're into the draft, you need to subscribe to a podcast from the NFL Network called Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah, and Bucky Brooks. And if you're really into the draft, go to ESPN and get the one from Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. And you're going to get a lot of information about a lot of players and a lot of positions. You're going to learn about who these players are, why they have them ranked where they do. Now, does that mean it's the Bible? No. Learn about the players that are available and where some NFL scouts have basically put them. And I think you're going to learn more about this, and you're going to learn more about the players. And that's what it's all about. Recognition and opportunity. And let's see what transpires for both our respective fan clubs, in a sense of the Browns and the Broncos. And actually excited. I think John Dorsey's a guy I've been hoping for would get the job, and did get the job. And I like the people that he's brought in. He's brought in more NFL guys and Hightower and, of course, Wolf. So we'll see exactly what they choose to do. I still think, my gut feeling, if the Browns are smart, that no matter who the quarterback they draft, he won't be playing this year because they're going to bring in a veteran. Who that veteran quarterback is, I don't know. But that, it's the same advice I gave last year. It's the same advice I'm going to give this year. And, if it's Kirk Cousins, fantastic. If Case Keenum, I could live with that. And anybody else in the process, if they have true NFL experience, I'm more than willing to bring them in as a Browns fan to be the number one quarterback to start the year. And whoever you draft, if it's Allen, if it's Mayfield, if it's Rosen, if it's Darnold, it doesn't matter to me. That person then will have the opportunity to grow and learn the offense and move into that position in year 2 or 3 of their career, and which would be fine. I mean, that's not uncommon. That's the way it used to be done a long time. And it's proven that the Browns keep going with rookie quarterbacks and it keeps killing them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time to try a different approach. That's my final thought here tonight. I want to thank Anthony. Go ahead, Anthony.
20 years ago, about this time, my Broncos won their first ever Super Bowl. So
there you go.
That makes today a great day.
It was. There's no doubt about it. I actually, one thing real quick about the Super Bowls in general is you end up rooting for teams that you don't really care about, because everybody has a side or they just want to see a great game. And when the Broncos made that run and, with the Elway and that company and was able to get back to the Super Bowl and win those back-to-backs, there was a lot of people like myself who was never a fan of Elway or the Broncos, but was excited to see them win. I was excited to see a new team win and someone to change his history. Instead of talking about the 3 losses and the multiple interception games he had in the Super Bowl and the clunkers that he had, they talk about his 2 championships.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with Manning. When Peyton Manning was able to win his last one, that's his second one. He's a multi Super Bowl champion with 2 different teams. And, that changes the whole outcome of what you talk about. And that's why Brady, no one talks about his 2 losses as much as they talk about his 5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
What will be going on this week, whatever happens. All right. Enough of that. We'll talk to you again next week as we'll try to get one in before the Super Bowl. We'll talk more about that on in the world of sports. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Tim Continenza or at The Real Radio MVP. Please follow that too, as I have a high school football game. I got a high school basketball game tomorrow night in Black Hawk. I believe that is in where it's towards Pittsburgh. I got to remember exactly where it's at. It's I want to say it's not Aliquippa, but I got to double check exactly where it's at. I got to get there, so that's all that matters.
I got to get there.
But you can listen to that on News Radio 1200 and also on Trib Live Sports Network. That is tribhssn.triblive.com. Just click on the broadcast link, go through the calendar, hit the calendar to date, and it'll drop down and show you the games that are available to listen to. You're going to listen to it live, or you can archive it and play it later. So a great site that Trib Live has, and glad to be part of it again. This is my third generation with them, as I've watched them grow from Nauticom to MSA and now into Trib Live. So, again, my Canfield, I'm Tim and Boardman. My thanks to you for listening and downloading, and don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. Till next week, guys. Thanks again. Good night. Beaver Falls is where it's at.
Is it?
I don't think it's stopped.
No, it didn't.